Ladies and gentlemen, this is Erik Danielsson from WATAIN, and you're listening to the Dan Chan Show.
Hey Erik, how are you, man?
I'm good, thank you, Dan. I'm here back in the trenches, releasing new music. It's like always a new experience.
Exactly. Well, we'll get into that. But firstly, I want to ask how things been during the pandemic for you, personally and for the band.
I would say I belong to the side that don't really have any complaints, to be honest.
Yeah.
I've used the time pretty well. I think it was great to kind of get a bit used to some kind of a home feeling. My life has been pretty nomadic since the age of 15, and I'm now closing in on 40. So
yeah,
it's nice to have like 2 years in the same place.
Yeah.
And I don't know, just pretty inspiring actually, just to tie up a lot of loose ends and lose a bit of dead weight and just getting on with it, you know. It's been good.
Well, let's get on to the music. You know, you're releasing the Agony NXT of WATAIN on the 29th of April, which is your 7th full length. And I've heard it ahead of release. It's everything the fans are going to want. So after the pandemic and all the shit that's been happening, are you looking forward to be getting this out?
Yeah, I can't wait. It's kind of a painful thing to go around with an album that is done, but people haven't heard it yet. It's like, I guess it's the closest I'll come to being pregnant. But now I'm dying for people to hear it, and much because I think it's maybe the only time in my entire life that I've been quite satisfied after leaving the studio. Just everything was just done right this time, and the material, I don't know, I think it has to do with maybe having left a bunch of unnecessary insecurities as an artist behind me, and just instead like standing on the platform that is the history of the band, you know, and putting a flag right in there.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. Has it been in the can for very long?
The music?
Yeah, the album.
We recorded over 2 months in August and September.
Oh, right.
Last year.
Quite recently.
So yeah, it's been done for quite a bit.
Yeah. Now, last week you released the first track off the album, The Howling. It's had a phenomenal reaction. And do you like to hear the praise, or do you release without caring about that kind of acknowledgement?
I used to be much more like, I tried to ignore it a bit more before, because I looked at it in a bit of a different way, kind of like a unnecessary necessity, if that's a thing. But this time around, I think I have to say that I think the reactions are pretty important to me. Not necessarily that they are good, but at least that people react. I think that's it's become like increasingly important. Or rather, I choose to see the benefits of actually having people react to your music rather than being annoyed by it, you know?
Yeah.
I think it can be quite a great thing to see we work a lot with energy, with emotions, with powers, you know. We tend to see our music as kind of being summoned forth from a place beyond the world of man, and I think it's interesting to see what that kind of work does among people and to people when it gets around, you know?
Yeah, of course. And the interesting thing is, you recorded this album live, which is the first time you've done that. What added complications did that make the process, and why did you decide to record this way?
Well, actually, I wouldn't say that it brought any complications at all. I think it just made everything a bit more effective, probably.
Was it more flowing? Was it more organic?
I mean, it's like a rehearsal.
Yeah, yeah.
With microphones. And the studio itself was the first time we recorded in this new studio, but it's with the same producer that we always use.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
the studio he built was in a church, on the countryside.
Yeah.
At an old church that he built an actual studio in. It looks like something that Pink Floyd would have recorded in the 70s or something. It's huge, you know. So standing there, and we also like decorated the whole place with some of the stuff that we have on stage, like filled it up with it, made it really atmospheric, and I mean, that compared to sitting in a basement and recording your own guitar parts alone, it's quite a big step. So what I took with me the most from that experience was probably that this is the way to go. I mean, this is like, I think every band should anyway be able to sound rehearsed or have rehearsed enough to be able to do that, at least when you play like kind of wild and rowdy music like we do. I mean, come on, it's just do it live. Why not?
So with such a cool setup, did you get some pretty shit hot footage you're going to share with it at some point?
Actually, we were so in the whole thing that we kind of missed out on that part.
Oh.
We had a friend. We had a friend there for like a day, but yeah, now I kind of regret it. It's generally like that. I find when in the studio that it's always like you wish afterwards that you would have documented it a bit more.
Hindsight.
I always love these those Metallica documentaries, for example, when you're recording the Black Album. I think they're
that's the best.
I love that. I love that kind of footage.
Yeah. Now this album has 10 tracks, which you've kind of split into an A and a B side. Apart from the recording element, how do you feel this album differs from the 2018's Trident Wolf Eclipse?
I think Trident Wolf Eclipse was more. That whole creative process was approached in an entirely different way. We were kind of dead set on that album to create something that had to do with this quite specific part of the band. This we were going straight for the. What would you say? Like straight for the jugular, right? That's the expression. Like it was much more like a predatory based, like aggressive mindset throughout that whole process. I think this album is much more liberated in a sense. It wasn't created with that kind of like limitation around it. Sometimes it's great to have that kind of limitation because it keeps you focused on this one thing and you can like really channel all your force into it. But I think it's also important to just let go of all those things when you create. And I really enjoyed that this time, being a bit more just free. And basically my only rule was that I was gonna be able to say that every second of this album I can stand behind, and this is the kind of music that I want to write, that I feel passionate about. That's quite a big difference, and I think you can also hear that in many ways in the material, but also in the performance and everything. So it's cool. I'm always very kind of satisfied when the album is, when you feel that there's quite a difference between the last album. I always think that's an accomplishment in itself.
Well, that goes to the next question. You're renowned for being one of the world's most notorious and well-known black metal bands. How has the band evolved throughout the 7 albums and over the 20 plus years? How do you feel in a nutshell?
I think we have evolved into something much more solid and self-aware, and I think we have kind of made a point of that we were fine with getting older and that it can mean quite cool things to a band being around for a while. For me, I mean, when I look around in metal in general, that's not exactly the general rule that bands get more I don't know, like creative or whatever over the years. It's usually the other way around. I wanted to make sure with my life with WATAIN that it was not going to be like that. I tend to think that if you focus on the right things, if you nourish your passions, if you stay focused on the wild and free parts of yourself, then things can become increasingly severe,
Yeah.
increasingly serious, and increasingly dangerous and strange and marvelous at the same time. You know? And that is the path that we have chosen to walk, and I think this album is quite a good summary of that, you know.
I get what you're saying. You're not far from controversy throughout all your 20 years of the history of the band, and you're caught in controversy again with tracks like Black Cut, for example. I mean, do you strive for that and aim for the reaction, or do you plan to simply not give a shit?
I mean, strive is maybe the wrong word, but to put it like this, WATAIN has always been complicated, you know, in a broader in a broader like kind of mainstream setting. At least it's always been a bit complicated. It's been counter-normative. It's been controversial, and seen through today's kind of a little bit anxious contemporary culture, it may be even more so. And I mean that it should be. I think it should be complicated. I think it should be kind of a thorn in the side of the people who just like normal things all the time. I think that's the role of WATAIN, and I think it's the role of black metal. I think it should be something that represents something else than the normative, you know, like an alternative position of morals, like a kind of a loosening of the conservative thought and this willingness to surrender to upheaval of the spirit, upheaval of the senses, you know, just fucking loosen all this nonsensical uptightness and this analytical states and just go for a while. That's what we are here for.
I can tell.
And you know, I mean, so I think like a title like Black, which is to me describes something that is very beautiful. You know, black and white are two of the most beautiful things that I know of. But yeah, sure. I'm sure people will see it as controversial, and in all honesty, I chose the title partly for that because I wanted these things to kind of surface a bit, because I think it's important to also talk about them. And that's another role that we have as a black metal band, or as WATAIN at least, to make sure that people fucking keep on talking, keep on discussing controversial subjects, keep on exploring what darkness and evil actually means, and what it means to them, and you know, how it can be used and how it can be you know, taken into various situations and so forth, right? So I mean, it's I'm aware that it can be seen as controversial, but I think it should be, and I think it's a good thing.
Now, religious views, I mean, for those that don't know, theistic Satanism is something you stand strong by. Did this belief come from the music well before? You know, obviously it goes hand in hand with black metal and the music, but I want to dig into your past with this.
Well, first of all, I want to say that I've read about this term theistic Satanism a lot around WATAIN. I see it mentioned every now and then, and I understand why you relate it. I don't really know what that is.
Right.
It's just a term that someone came up with in one of the articles about us, and it sort of stuck. I don't really know what it is. But yeah, absolutely, we have had strong bonds and still have with satanic thought patterns and satanic tradition. As a black metal band, it was quite a natural thing from the start to have, especially because we grew up in an environment in Sweden around Stockholm. At the turn of the millennium, we were religious, satanic. The thought patterns were truly emerging in a kind of fanatical way, and it became something that far exceeded, you know, just the music. It became, for a lot of people, the more important thing out of the two. But with all that being said, I believe that spirituality to me now is quite. It's woven together with the music. Absolutely, I see music to a great extent as a spiritual vessel or spiritual exploration tool, perhaps. I think, I don't belong to most maybe modern people in the West that have kind of lost or severed their connection to religion. I am religious in so far that I have a great humbleness and a reverence for things that science have not yet been able to account for,
Right.
I find them a bottomless source of inspiration for everything that I do with WATAIN. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, do your beliefs go side by side with, say, some like satanic left-hand path occultics groups, such as like Order of the Nine Angles? I mean, I'm very interested in the occult and its belief systems. Is your system the purest form?
I think that everyone you ask would say that their system is the most pure form,
Well,
and that is
yeah, of course.
one of the big problems of religion in general,
yeah.
or at least religious people. Religion itself is not really a problem, but religious people can be very well, how to say, single-minded, perhaps. I have deliberately swayed away a bit from talking about my own personal beliefs in interviews. I used to do that quite a lot when I was younger, and I thought all that time that it would serve some kind of purpose. But I saw ultimately that it perhaps didn't really, or not any good purpose at least. I if it's one side of man that I really don't want to encourage, it's the side of man that is really willing to be led and take someone else's thoughts and make them their own. I am a little bit allergic to that side of the human nature, and I prefer to present people with questions rather than answers, I think, and a lot of those questions you will find in the lyrics, absolutely, and also the music. I think what is it that we're hearing here, and what is this violent darkness that we are listening to? Is it, what does it want? What does it do to me?
I understand. So what's your view on black metal as it stands today? And do the fakers piss you off?
I mean, fakers will always piss me off, right? who likes fakers? And I mean, to put it like this, I have always had a very strong respect for black metal and for heavy metal in general. I'm a total metalhead to the bone, and I mean, there will always be posers. There will always be people who betray their ideals and so forth, right? But they don't last. No one remembers those people. It's like the things that last are those that were made by genuine people who had a strong fire and a strong belief in what they did, and that's the kind of art that will survive. It goes. I mean, that whole reasoning goes beyond. Music. It goes for anything. So I don't pay them much mind. I'll gladly confront them when I get the chance. But there's so much to do in this short life, and I'd rather stay focused on actually doing great things with great people rather than paying attention to fools.
So who's keeping it real, in your opinion?
Who is keeping it real? I mean, when it comes to our genre, when it comes to black metal, I think you'll have to. That's the way actually it's always been. You'll have to look for quite a while to find the equivalent of what used to be Mayhem in '93 or Beherit or Blasphemy and bands like this. I mean, you'll always have to search the underground for those, and you have to know and you have to find your way, kind of. I think most people understand that you won't find the most radical bands on a on an arena stage. I think you'll find them in other kind of circumstances.
Yeah, I get it. Of course.
But here is also an experiment that we're doing a bit with WATAIN, ending up on a label like Nuclear Blast and always kind of heading for whatever it's ahead and above and below, for that matter. And I don't really see that we have any equivalent in that regard. And there are a lot of older bands still around that keep on playing and so on. But I don't know. I mean, not to sound arrogant, but I think we are of a little bit of a different breed than maybe Dark Funeral or Dimmu Borgir and bands like these. I think like they sweep their side of the street and we sweep ours.
That's a good way of saying it. So what's the future for black metal? I mean, as people crave the more extreme music, do you ever think it will become more commercial? I mean, you've already just touched upon it. There's different sides of the street, but do you ever think it will come in the middle and everyone will go down that same road?
I think that the reason why WATAIN has gotten bigger over the years is because we stuck to our guns and because people find that interesting, that like how can they keep on pushing boundaries but still, I don't know, be on the cover of magazines. I think it's a little unique when it comes to black metal, I think, at least. And I think that's kind of the appeal to a lot of people. In all honesty, I think, but I have no idea how far it can be taken. But I intend to find out. Yeah.
Now, you create a show or ritual, as you like it to be known, that is far one of the most extreme visuals people will see in extreme music. You create the visuals, the concepts. How important is this for WATAIN? How do you keep pushing the limits? I mean, I say limits loosely, as I know you probably don't abide by them, but how do you keep it fresh all the time?
Well, the live context is so limitless somehow. It's something that I think you can explore for an entire lifetime and elaborate and just continue to evolve. Especially when you also like climb on the ladder, in the sense that you're getting to bigger stages which allow you to do bigger productions and so on. I mean, this is a passion of ours, and it's been for a long time, and it's one of the things that we consider like a very central aspect of WATAIN, besides releasing albums. It's and doing what we do with our art. I mean, the stage itself is very much point of focus as well. And I don't know. I mean, I right now we are building some of the most outrageous things that we've ever put on a stage, and I think it's just gonna go down that road. It's where there's no limit as far as debauchery on stage goes. So
with that in mind, you're going on tour with Mayhem next month in March. That's in the States. Have you got any European shows planned?
Yes, we do. We are about to announce a tour in September with a pretty spectacular lineup, I would say.
Exciting.
But I was checking today with the label, and I wasn't unfortunately I'm not able to reveal like the bands yet, because some things are still being negotiated.
Awesome.
But that will be amazing. It will be a really cool tour, and the first European headliner tour for us in what is it now, 4 years something.
Awesome. Now I could talk all night with you, Erik, and finally, last question, do you have any message for the old or new fans?
Well, check out the album. We have so many things to show you from what we found within ourselves and in the deeps this time, and we are very eager to see what it does to you.
Erik, thanks for taking the time to chat with me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it too. Good talk.